In the quiet streets of Northern California, between the neon lights of San Francisco and the winding country roads of Vallejo, a shadow stalked the night. A man, faceless, nameless, yet terrifyingly present, struck fear into the heart of America. He was not an ordinary killer. He didn't just take lives, he took pleasure in taunting the world. Letters written in blood-chilling prose, ciphers that mocked police, phone calls that sneered at the public. He became more than a criminal. He became a phantom, a symbol of fear that outlived his crimes. They called him the Zodiac Killer. And to this day, his name remains unknown. The 1960s were an era of a transformation in America. Civil rights movements filled the streets. Music festivals promised peace and love, and yet beneath the surface violence simmered. California, with its golden coastlines and cultural revolution, was at the center of it all. San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury was alive with hippies, art and protests against the Vietnam War. But only a few miles away, in small suburban towns, a far darker story was beginning. It started with whispers of a killer who targeted young couples. Lovers' lanes, once considered places of intimacy and escape, became hunting grounds. The police departments of Vallejo, Napa, and San Francisco would soon be connected by a trail of blood that no one could predict or stop. By the late 1960s, the Zodiac Killer had carved his name into American history, not with kindness, not with justice, but with fear. The Zodiac's rampage began on December 20, 1968. Two teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, parked their car on Lake Herman Road, just outside Vallejo. It was their first date. The night was calm, the stars glimmered overhead, but in an instant, the serenity shattered. A man approached. He carried a flashlight and a gun. The teens had no chance. Shots rang out. Betty Lou was struck 5 times in the back as she tried to run. David was shot in the head at close range. They were found just minutes later. The killer vanished. 6 months passed. Then on July 4, 1969, the Zodiac struck again. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were sitting in a car at Blue Rock Springs Park. A vehicle pulled up beside them, then drove away, only to return minutes later. The driver stepped out. Without a word, he opened fire. Bullets tore through the windows. Michael, bleeding and screaming, survived. Darlene did not. That night, the police received a phone call. A calm male voice confessed to the murders. He even took credit for the Lake Herman Road killings. It was the first time law enforcement realized they were dealing with someone far more dangerous than a random killer. But it wasn't the last. On September 27, 1969, college students Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell were picnicking at Lake Berryessa. A man dressed in a hooded executioner's costume approached, carrying a gun and a knife. He claimed to be an escaped convict. Then he bound them with ropes. What followed was a frenzy of violence. Brian was stabbed 6 times, Cecilia, 10. A passerby discovered them hours later. Brian survived, Cecilia did not. The killer struck again only 2 weeks later. On October 11, 1969, cab driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger in San Francisco. At the end of the ride, the man pulled out a gun and shot Stein point blank in the head. This time, witnesses saw the killer leaving the scene. The police arrived quickly. For the first time, they were close, too close. But a miscommunication describing the suspect as black instead of white allowed the killer to walk away. Some officers even reported passing him on the street and letting him go. It was one of the most haunting mistakes in American law enforcement history. The Zodiac wasn't content with killing. He wanted attention. He began sending letters to newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Vallejo Times-Herald, and the San Francisco Examiner. Each letter was more disturbing than the last. He described the murders in vivid detail, including information only the killer could know. He demanded that his words be published, or he threatened to kill again. He demanded that his words be published, or he threatened to kill again. But the most chilling part, the ciphers, symbols, strange codes, cryptograms, teasing law enforcement to crack his identity. One cipher was solved quickly, revealing a terrifying message. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. For years detectives chased leads. A man named Arthur Lee Allen became a prime suspect. He was odd, lived near the crime scenes, and had disturbing tendencies, but no evidence ever tied him directly to the murders. Fingerprints didn't match, handwriting analysis was inconclusive, DNA testing, decades later, also failed to prove his guilt. The Zodiac himself mocked the police. In one letter he wrote, "I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." He bragged of 37 victims, though only a handful could be proven. Over time, other suspects emerged. Richard Gaikowski, a journalist; Lawrence Kane, a convicted criminal; Busras Sullivan, a library worker. Each seemed to fit part of the puzzle, but never all of it. The case spread into pop culture, inspiring movies, books, and endless speculation. Every time police thought they were close, the evidence slipped through their fingers like smoke. Decades passed. The murders stopped, the letters faded, but the legend of the Zodiac grew stronger. In the 2000s, DNA evidence was tested from stamps and envelopes. Some samples suggested that certain suspects could be ruled out, others only deepened the mystery. In 2021, a team of private investigators calling themselves the Casebreakers claimed they had identified the Zodiac as Gary Francis Post, a man with a violent past, who had died in 2018. But law enforcement has never confirmed this. The San Francisco Police Department still considers the case open and unsolved, and maybe that's exactly what the Zodiac wanted. To this day, his identity remains a mystery, a ghost that slipped through the cracks of time, a phantom who turned fear into a game, and death into a puzzle. The people he killed are remembered, their families still grieve, but the killer himself, he lingers in the shadows of history. The Zodiac once promised that man was the most dangerous animal of all. And perhaps by never being caught, he proved himself right. Impactful, the Zodiac killer walked into history as a faceless nightmare, a man who hunted under the stars and vanished into the dark, leaving behind only questions, fear, and a name written in blood.